Greetings everybody, my name's Pieta Valentine and I've written 2 books, The Resident's Voice from a Dementia Unit and The Resident's Rise from a Dementia Unit. These videos are to help relatives when they're setting up someone in a dementia unit and helping them as much as they can to improve their quality of life as best as they can for someone recently admitted to a dementia unit. The first 6 videos here are for setup in a dementia unit. So the video today is on room setup for mother. Now this is another really big subject, so I am aware that the person that's looking after the person with dementia will not necessarily have time to sit down and look at these videos, though hopefully they will if the person with dementia is settled and quiet, but sometimes they're not. So for the person with dementia who's like very full on in terms, has an enormous amount to cope with the cares of the person, if they're like a little bit aggressive or anxious or whatever, then if a family member or a granddaughter or a friend watches this video in terms of room setup, then they can go to the person, especially like if the mother or father is about to enter into a dementia unit, go to them and just give them the key points, because it really is a big help if you're prepared in advance for this, because there's a lot to take into consideration. So I think in terms of room setup, we'll start with the walls. Maybe a funny place to start, but actually walls are big in the room, ground area small, so at least there's some liberty with the walls. Okay, so for example, now setting up a room is not about just taking in 1 or 2 things that remind mum of home. No, setting up a room is setting up a room as close to home as possible, as comfortable and as close to home as possible. If a person is in a dementia unit that has, say, 30 rooms, they're often in a circular arrangement, then that's like 30 houses in the street. Their room is their home, it's like their house. So you set it up like a home, even though it's a mini home, like a mini house, isn't it? Or tiny homes, yeah, like that. Mind you, they don't need the kitchen, obviously, because they get their meals, and most of them will in New Zealand have en suites at initial level care dementia, though not at secondary care. But it's just the bedroom. Well, you don't have to worry too much about the bathroom, but it's the bedroom, setting up the bedroom. Okay, the walls. So they need to be geared to the interests of the person. So for example, as in New Zealand, many women are from farms, they're farmers' wives, you know, we're a farming country. So they love the farm, and many have photographs of the farm that have been taken, you know, big, lovely photographs, big frames, fantastic, because that's just like they're at home, isn't it? They can look at the farm. So put that in a good central spot where they can see it. Some people have artwork that is you know, of the farm. Sometimes it's quite common in New Zealand for artists, if the family is friends with an artist, then they paint the farm, and then they've got that beautiful picture of the farm there as well as the photo. So as much of that as you can get, that's fantastic. Now it's very common in New Zealand for, I don't know the rest of the world, excuse me, but women here love cats. Like, I don't know, women all over the world love cats, but anyway, cats are a big deal, more than dogs, especially when you're older. Cats, big deal. Oh, maybe it is. It's becoming more dog. For fit, active women, I noticed that dogs, little dogs, are becoming increasingly popular. But anyway, with the work that I've done at dementia units, with the women that are there, cats are a really big deal. So, you know, the stuffed little cat on the cushion, I mean, a stuffed little cushion cat, you know, you can get cats looking like cushions, if you can believe it, on the chair. Books of cats, magazines of cats, paintings or pictures of cats on the wall. Well, especially a picture of the actual cat, that's even better, isn't it? If they've had a lovely little cat, the picture of the lovely cat. Nice big picture, not a tiny, big pictures, a bit much better. few, lots of, well, you don't want to overcrowd it like a museum. It has to be attractive and balanced, but a good big picture of the cat, fantastic. Most women, I have to say, have photos of their wedding day. It's a big deal. Say maybe this size, fine. One woman that I worked with, she had this beautiful painting, photograph. It was unusually big for that era, of about that size, with her husband in the garden. Just a really attractive, natural, friendly, off-the-cuff picture. It was such a nice picture. It really set up the room. Another patient had been a sailor and, you know, been on the sea for decades, and he had this, his partner had blown up this fantastic big photo of him on the ship with the sea and the waves and the works. It was good, it was huge, and it really set off the room. Just by his bed, you could go and you could see straight up. He'd been a sailor, he loved the sea, loved everything about it. So that when nursing staff and carers and you know, the whole regalia come in, they can communicate with the person about it. That's being the whole idea, as well as the person themselves enjoying it and being amidst it. So use your, you know, creativity with this, but the walls are there to be used, and lots of pictures and paintings and lovely, you know. Another thing, crochet, well, no, it's a crochet, embroidery, that's it in New Zealand. You know, the old, oh, yeah, I mean, that era, oh, it was all, well, my mother, she was all, well, not so much that sort of crochet, and what is it, that thread work that they do, embroidery, but knitting all the time, crocheting, patching, oh, patchwork quilts were in, yeah, the 60s, big. So anyway, handiwork, that's it, lots of handiwork. So if there's embroidery, stitch work that they've done on the wall, yes, lovely, on it goes. Next thing. The next thing I would go to is the bed. Okay, big subject. I've actually mentioned a lot about the bed in the Resident's Voice, where is it? The first book. Room Set Up and Attire, Epilogue 2. It's got about the bed and the walls, and everything's listed out there formally. So if you're a reader, read the books. If you're a viewer, view these. If you like to read and view, do both. So there's options there for you, trying to make it as easy as we can for you, because we all know it's a really big deal and a really big effort. Well, hopefully, look, I'm saying a really big effort. I talk about effort in a positive sense, because I think if you make effort, you know, you'll get results, and life will improve for everybody. So it's not in a negative context. I actually quite like being disciplined. Some people don't. But with helping with people with dementia, you do actually have to be disciplined, and you do have to make effort. So it's not really any way you can get around that. And hopefully the person with themselves that has dementia makes an effort as well. But we'll go into that more in the future. The bed. Okay, the bed in the room. In an institutionalised setup, I'll just describe the setup. You've got the single bed, very skinny, very thin. You know, none of us would want to sleep in it unless you're very tiny. So, you know, it's really only, yeah, it's only enough room for one person, because only one person lives in the room in dementia units. If you've got a partner or a husband, lucky if they're next door to you, let alone the same unit, that's difficult. So the bed is often has crisp, cold white sheets, an uncomfortable nylon. They're really terrible feeling, those nylon covers, and they go over the bed, they're right down to the floor, and a spongy sort of a pillow. The whole thing's uncomfortable, really, it really is uncomfortable, and not warm and not cozy. So the bed, the best thing you can do is, it's actually quite good to bring in some warm fluffy sheets, because you know, it's cold in the winter. I mean, yeah, it is actually. We'll talk about warmth later. It can get really cold in those rooms in the winter. So warm fluffy sheets, and a woolen blanket, one's probably enough, and then a good duvet. If it's summer, you won't obviously need the blanket, and a good light single duvet, good colourful, colour, you know, so it's got nice colours in it, so it balances with the room. Duvets are fantastic because they're light. The person can just slip themselves under it, you know, if they want to sleep in the day, and they're easy to manage. Also, a mohair blanket, fantastic. Just a single mohair blanket that can go over the whole bed, because similarly, even easier, the person, even with their shoes on in the day, can come to their room, now that they know where it is, remember, orientation video, they slip themselves under with their shoes on, pull the blanket up, there's it, they can go to sleep. Get them a pillow that they like, you know, feather pillows are fantastic because you can mould them around easily, whereas those spongy, you know, rubber pillows, no, I mean, they're terrible, really. I mean, I know they're marketed well, but feather's much easier to get around your neck and make it cosy. So if they've got their nice cosy bed, that's it, they're set up for sleeping, big deal. Second thing is the chair. Now, chairs are really important. The chair needs to be such that they can get in and out of it easily. That's the main thing, because you do have to be independent living in a dementia unit and first level care. So best thing is bring in the chair that mum had at home. Doesn't matter what it looks like. It fits her, she knows that she's familiar with it. That's the best arrangement. And the chairs in institutions such as dementia units are often, you know, those high chairs with skinny wooden legs, high back, you know, like boardroom chairs for 6-foot men, and they're really awkward and really uncomfortable. So please not to sort of leave them there with that, because they'll just have no life at all if they can't sit down and be comfortable in their chair in their room. So set that up. Next thing is, you know, the bedside table, all the things. Bring in some nice magazines and books that mum likes reading, dad likes reading. Look, even if they're not reading them thoroughly, doesn't matter. They can flick through the magazines, they can look at the cover of the book, they can, you know, show it to their friend even if they don't read it, but, you know, some can. And little activities are great. More and more this is happening now. I noticed when I first started working at dementia units, it was abysmal. The rooms really, relatives didn't seem to understand how to make an effort, but I think the Alzheimer's Society here in New Zealand is really making a good effort explaining and educating relatives, because the new residents coming in, they have dementia clocks with the name, big letters, time and date, fantastic. One man even had goldfish, couldn't believe it, fabulous. Oh, and the family kept that goldfish alive for 3 years. I don't know how they did that, because there was quite a bit of work to it, you know, feeding it and cleaning it and whatever. And he loved that goldfish. I have to say everyone else loved the goldfish. Across the corridor, one of the other residents had a budgie. Well, that made quite a bit of noise. I thought that it was a bit of a, you know, I mean, yeah, it made a lot of noise. It was distracting. Anyway, that budgie died a lot. And the family used to keep bringing in a new budgie, you know, and the resident thought it was the same budgie. In the end, budgies finished, too many budgies, and she's just got the cage without the budgie, but she didn't actually seem that distressed. That distressed about having no budgie now that she'd been through so many budgies. But, you know, I mean, we all have different interests, don't we? And, you know, we all love different things. We all like different things. Like me, I like reading. I just have a whole library and I'm fine. I think I'd be fine. I'd just sit in the blooming room and read. God for goodness, if I couldn't read, I don't know what. But, you know, reading for me is the big thing. So you just have to really tune into what the person likes. Not so much what you think they should do or what would be good for them, no, but what they do like. Now, activities, that's going to be another video soon, and there's hopefully many, certainly in New Zealand, activities in dementia facilities are very common. Maybe I'll go into activities in the room when I talk about activities in the unit, because that can overflow a lot. You know, things like, what do they call it? Jigsaw puzzles and colouring in and all these sorts of things. If your mother's into that, it's good to just have a few sets of things, maybe in the bookcase. Bookcases are great remember, moderate-sized bookcases, small bookcases, can fit a lot in them. That you can see it clearly, you can access it clearly. They're excellent. Even tall bookcases, nailed to the, fastened to the wall, fabulous. You've got this whole area that you can fill up with books and activities. One lady, she had her daughter was incredibly organised, and she came in with these little plastic containers. Some had felt, some had crayons, some had colouring in books, some had jigsaw puzzles. It was excellent setup. And then she put them all in the bookcase, and then the mother, I have to tell you, she was very distressed for the first few days. She actually met a man at the unit in the story, and then every day she'd get up, she'd have her activities, set them out on the dining table or in a room. She had a little, movable table that she could use, and she was happily active all day. So that can work. And also with activities, some residents actually develop new interests, and they can develop new interests, and that is really helpful. So if that's the case, then you can bring in activities and put them in their room like jigsaw puzzles, etc. So we'll go into that more later. So this is the room. We've got the bed set up, the room set up, got the walls done, and the wardrobe's been organised from the prior video. Pretty much now, these 6 videos that we've just done is the basic setup for coming into a dementia unit. The person's orientated, they can get to their room, they can lie down, it's comfortable. Oh yes, the heater. Okay, that's an important one. That the room is warm. That can be missed out by some relatives. Okay, of course, dementia units need to be heated, but sometimes maintenance men forget to put the switch on in the heat in the winter. Yes, it does happen. So you just have to check on these things, that the room is warm enough. Hopefully they have I'm sure most of the time it's attended to, but sometimes there can be a lapse. So underfloor heating is usually the case. But sometimes if the woman or your mother is thin, and doesn't like wearing a lot of clothes, it can be really cold, especially in the winter, especially in New Zealand and Denmark, I'm sure, and other northern places. So have another heater there and put a sign by it and explain to staff that when it's cold or what hours you'd like this heater on, so that they can just put it on and have it on for the day at the temperature that your mother needs. Now that's plenty, isn't it? There's so much to that, the setting up a room business. Probably there's lots of other things, but I don't want to overwhelm you with it. And I think but these are the basics. And also the thing is, once you've got the idea of it, it'll roll on. You'll come up with lots of other ideas yourself. Like, for example, a lamp in the corner of the room. Lovely. Especially if the room's got sort of sharp glare from fluorescent type lights. It's nice to have a mellow light. Mind you, that's improving in units here, that mellow lights are coming in, which is great. But if not, just put a light out of the way, making sure all the way that there's no tripping hazards in the room, especially if your mother or father is frail and likely for falls. No tripping hazards. Also, there has to be room for the ever-present walker for a large percentage of the residents that have walkers, so that has to be negotiated. When you've done all this, you'll find this little room is quite full. Maybe a little footstool. Some people like putting their feet up. I know I do when I read, putting their feet up in their comfortable chair, even to have a snooze, So bring in their little footstool. That shouldn't take up too much room. Tuck it back by the chair or under the chair, even better. And that's about all they need. Do get the little side table, even for tea and coffee, rather than a big wheel movable trolley, which is what's usually provided. Now that's plenty, isn't it? I'm sure. Look, really, that's plenty. Yes, okay, so we'll keep it at that. Look, a lot of these points are mentioned in this book, The Resident's Voice. I'll put a link to it below the description. This is all new to me, by the way, so we just sort of, it's not perfect, I know, but I'm just doing my best here. So I'll put a link, because in the resident's voice there's a lot on the room. There's some extra points I've mentioned in this video, there's some extra points in this book, but both cover all camps and whichever viewpoint you enjoy listening to and learning from. Great. So thank you for taking the time, and goodbye.